So it's great to have you, Dr. Sobti, here, and sitting out of Chicago today. You're in Chicago, I'm assuming, right? I
In
see the
Chicago,
yes,
yep,
I see the
the house that
house,
you were in.
the top floor where I had been, and it's amazing. So thank you so much for taking
Right.
the time out. So
Mhm.
what we do actually in Healthcare Tribe podcast, as I started telling you earlier, we capture the journeys of leadership journeys, personal and professional leadership journeys of people in healthcare who have shaped healthcare to a great extent, and definitely you are one of them. And globally, right? And till now, we have been covering a lot of people from India. We did cover one of my GE colleagues, Ashutosh Banerjee, who has a global career and is in Milwaukee. Last time we talked with him as well in a very similar fashion. We What I would want to do, we will be having a conversation as we always have, and but I want this conversation to be made probably public for others to enjoy and learn as well. What Most of the audience, we will cover at least a couple of things. It will be a general discussion, but what we will cover for sure, a couple of areas which I think the audience will find interesting. One is to understand how teleradiology and radiology practice is there in US versus your views
Sure.
in India and US, right? It's a little bit of comparison. We'll have a chat over that for sure. Your personal journey of how you made it in US, right? And where did this start,
Sure.
and things like that. Definitely we'll talk on AI in radiology. I mean, which podcast is complete without that in terms of
Right.
impact? And then there will be specific areas we will cover within the radiology domain, as well as your US journey, and definitely your business journey, and the business of radiology that is there. So we will talk on these things for sure, that we'll cover, and other things will of course emerge in the conversation. So
Love it.
from that perspective, let's start from
Love
a
it.
place in what made you in what went took you in US in the first place.
So I think this is it's a good foray into the U.S. I'm obviously of
Yeah.
Indian descent. My parents are from North India. They came here in 1970s. I was born in America in 1982. So, it's a good. There's a large migration of us, not only who are still in India, but obviously here in America. My mother is a radiologist. My brother, obviously, radiologist. So it's a familial thing in American of Indian descent. We're all doctors. But my journey's a little different. So I'm in Chicago, Illinois, large city, third largest city in America. Grew up. My father is in technology, in telecom, and my mother's a radiologist, as I said. Grew up. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I always had a propensity for math, engineering, etc. Similar to every Indian in the world, all 2 billion of us. And the beauty is that I had kind of an upbringing where I was afforded essentially everything I ever wanted. Right, born with a silver spoon in my mouth. My parents were very, very dedicated parents, great people. They gave me everything I needed to succeed. They gave me not only obviously opportunity, but I think they gave me a good parenting to say, you've got to make something of yourself, which is not always done. So I'm always very grateful for not only their tutelage, but obviously the opportunities they gave me. So then I went to an engineering school to start. In America, you do after high school, after 18th standard or senior year high school, you go to undergraduate engineering, undergraduate for 4 years, determining what you want to do. So in Chicagoland, or Illinois as our state, there's a very good engineering school called University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Probably number 3 in electrical engineering, number 5 or so in computer engineering, number 1 in civil engineering. I did biomedical engineering, electrical engineering. So it's a very difficult school. Many people from China, many people from India come directly there just to do the engineering. Large corporations, Googles, Netscapes at the time, Yahoos at the time, they pluck directly from University of Illinois to get that engineering brain drain. So I was with the brightest and the best engineering minds in the world at University of Illinois. I didn't know what I wanted to become originally. My father at the time was in the Silicon Valley with a startup telecom company, backed by large venture capital firms, worth a lot of money. So I saw that world, and then I saw the medical world of my mom helping people, right? So I wanted to do something. Originally, I went into engineering thinking there was some form of innovation I could do within healthcare, whether it was within tech or whether it was in computer engineering. But decided in 2004 when I graduated, there was a tech burst, and it was very difficult. Silicon Valley was like barren, and it was almost it was just a disaster of going into engineering or tech at that time. So I decided to go to medical school, which again, I had biomedical engineering, so I had a pre-medical requisites. I had finished all those and done
So
well
you,
enough
you
to get into medical school.
completed engineering and then did, or
Completed engineering. I have a bachelor's in engineering and science. So I'm a biomedical engineer, bachelor's engineer, right? I could go into the engineering world tomorrow, but decided to go to med school after I graduated, which is how you do it in America. After your 4 years of undergraduate, generally you do a biology degree or pre-medical degree. I did an engineering degree, and then I went to medical school, which was very hard for me to get into. There's much smarter people than I am. But, got into medical school here at a university in a Chicagoland area called Rush. Very good school, ranked very highly in the things I wanted to do. I loved the medical device world of orthopedics. I thought that was very innovative. I was going to be, an orthopedic surgeon going into medical school, and Rush happens to be a top 10 school for orthopedics. That was the plan going in. I had done research in, spinal research, and I thought I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon. But med school kind of beat me up pretty badly, because now we've taken the smartest and brightest from undergraduate and, now gotten into med school, which are the smartest and brightest. And then we keep on going in a pyramid fashion. So I didn't graduate top of my class in medical school, but I graduated well enough to get a radiology residency. Now, radiology in America is probably one of the toughest residencies to get. There's orthopedic surgery, there's dermatology, anesthesia. Radiology is up there because in America, it's very skewed towards which fields pay the most money. And we have a fee for service, so it's a very obvious amount of money you can make in radiology, where there's MRIs you're reading, which you can bill, and then how many ever you read, you recoup that. So it's a very well-paid, lucrative field. And I got into radiology, but not because of the pay. Remember, my mom's a radiologist. My brother at the time was a radiologist. But I loved engineering, right? So the number one field, maybe outside of radiation oncology, but we can argue, is radiology, because the innovation within radiology to use radiation, number one, to view your images, right? CT and X-ray, to polarize the water in your body to do an MRI, to do a PET scan, which is, decay of beta ions, to inject technetium and measure its radioactive decay. It's so far beyond any other field in medicine to say that the physics, just the physics alone, is so far beyond in engineering than any other field. So I loved it, right? And part of the thing in America is you have to take a physics board. So I'm a board licensed physicist in America as well, right? So I did my physics board, then my written board, and then passed my oral boards for radiology. So after undergraduate, full engineer, then passed medical school, all 3-step licensing, passed all that, then went to radiology residency, passed all 3 of those boards, but you still need further education, and I did that in 2 ways. I went to the University of Chicago and got an accredited fellowship in MRI, because that's just the field that I think was going to be the future of imaging, and it is, technically. We're getting faster, we're getting better, we can see more, we can do things with better scans. And I also did the study of information technology within radiology, specifically, but also within medicine, because, EMRs became very popular during my graduation. The radiology picture archiving computing system, the PACS system, is an innovative tool, which is IT to a 10th degree using HIPAA compliance. We're looking at ways to measure DICOM images, which are so granular and so much better than PDF, to look at literal cancer at a 1 millimeter resolution. So again, that information technology. So I did another fellowship in that as well.
Gosh, were you
At the
were you
same
always extremely bright student?
So that's what I'd like to tell everyone. I'm not. I'm bright enough to be better than average. Okay.
Of course.
But I don't think that's the whole story. I think you learn as you go, number one. So experience does pay for something. But number two, you learn how to learn, number two, right? But number three, if you keep passing, the group of people that are at your level are so far and few between, right? So now I've done engineering, so there's a large group. I've done medical school as an engineer, smaller group. I've done radiology, smaller group, who's done engineering and medical school. Then I've done 2 fellowships, which is even a smaller tool, but I also didn't know anything about business. So at the same time of my fellowships paid for me to go to business school at University of Chicago, which is probably the best business school.
I'm going to come on that because that's one of the most fascinating things I found in terms of and in terms of what we have even discussed last time, right, when we met. But we will come to that. One thing I want to definitely uncover before that is, you must have been a good student, and as you rightly said, it's not about only that, which I get it. But you are also the second person I'm meeting now. A rare number of people are of those kinds who actually wanted to be an engineer and became doctors. You became one as well. I think that's even more unique because it's probably US which allows that. In India, I don't know, it might be allowed, but I've never heard anyone doing an engineering and then doing a medicine. I'm not even sure it's possible, to be honest. But there are a lot of people who wanted to do medicine and ended up doing engineering. There are very few people who wanted to be an engineer and ended up being a doctor, right? Dr. Vimal Raj, by the way, is one of those who loved engineering, and I think that there is some connection between radiology as a choice and having an engineering and technology mind who land up in medicine. Now, I've built a strong hypothesis that a radiologist is kind of half engineer, half doctor. In a way, right?
Absolutely. Or scientist or physicist or something that, we don't, our natural progress and process of treating patients is very different than a general practice doctor, right? Different than a surgeon.
Now, going back to one more thing though, back to your upbringing that you mentioned, and going back, so you were raised in US always, right? You were raised in US, so born and raised in US. What was the Indian influence on you, and how was those early years that shaped? Is this entire academic, as you were mentioning, academic rigor coming from the typical Indian background, or is this just a myth? US also had that similar. What would you say on those lines?
Sure. So I certainly can't speak to everybody in the world, right? That's impossible. I will tell you that I was always very proud to be Indian. There is a degree of pride in making your parents proud. That is, I think, Indian in India. The difference is that I not only had great tutors, they were great parents. They gave me everything they needed. They were carrot and stick, right? They gave me the carrot and they gave me the stick. But I also had role models, right? So they came to America with nothing. They were both not, my mom was a doctor in India, but had to come to do residency. My father was an engineer in India, but he had to come here, do his PhD, etc. So they came with nothing. Essentially, they came with debt, and they made something of themselves. So for me to look at that, and they're giving me more than they ever had, I didn't have the chance to fail because your own self-pride. Now, I think a lot of this comes down to your self-drive, right? As a parent, I'm a parent now, and I'm understanding I can't force my children to be great. You just can't. So I think there's an innate drive, and my drive was more again, I never graduated. I wasn't valedictorian of high school or med school or undergraduate. I never was number one. I was never top 10. I was in the top 50 I was in the top 10%, right? So good enough to get to the next level, but never the best. And I want to tell you why that's very important. Sometimes when you're number one at something and you get what you achieve, you kind of rest on your laurels. And this is a very common analogy in all sports where you're ahead by a lot and you end up becoming more conservative and you play back, and the team that has something to prove or win ends up becoming more, they have a chip on their shoulder. They need to succeed further. So I was never number one, but I was always looking at number one to be number one, right? And I always had to get to that next level because I knew I wasn't the best. So if I went to the next level and was top 10%, now the pyramid has become better. Now my 6 degrees I have, right? So there's undergraduate engineering, medical school, residency, fellowship 1, fellowship 2, and now business school. The 6 things I've done, that's a 1 in a trillion person if you do the power of the 12th. Because getting into something and graduating something is 2. So once you get into undergrad, that's good, but you got to graduate. That's 2. Once you get into medical school, that's good, but you got to graduate. That's 2. Once you get into residency, you got to get into it, and then you got to graduate. So the power of 12th is 1 in 1 trillion. There's nobody like me on earth because there's only 8 billion of us. I'm 1 in 1 trillion. So that takes 1,000 earths to find one of me, right? That's the way I look at it. I'm not the best, but if you keep on selecting for the top 10%, eventually you're the best because there's no one that could even come close, right? Now there's plenty of MD, MBAs, right? There's plenty of radiology MDs that have fellowships. There's plenty of radiologists that have 2 fellowships. Putting all 3 of those together,
exactly.
That's very hard.
It's a combination of things.
So and I was, again, there are so many smarter people at every station of my life. Engineering, I got crushed. Medical school, I got crushed. Residency, I was good, but not the best. In fellowship, I was not liked. As a matter of fact, the University of Chicago didn't hire me. They had a job, they didn't hire me. In information technology, there's people that have higher PhDs than me. In business school, I was not the top, right? So it's just, at every level, I wasn't the best. But if you keep persevering and you keep graduating, you keep getting in, eventually when you're 33, and these people have stopped long before because they got into Harvard when they were 18 and they're done at 22, I've beaten them, right? That's the difference between me and someone else. So the perseverance is there. I mean, I played the long game. My first paycheck where I wasn't making minimum wage, I was 35 years old.
Lovely.
Because in residency and fellowship, you make $16 an hour. And I worked 80 hours a week for 35 years.
So that's one thing, right? I have always had this perception of you, right? And I might be wrong, but I had that you are extremely driven and ambitious. Yeah, that's my perception of you from very few meetings that we had, right? And that's how.
Yes.
Now today, probably a little bit of that is getting validated, but I'm trying to understand where does this drive come from? Like is it you're very competitive, or where does this drive comes from?
That's a good question. So I'm not very competitive. I'm not. And my number one quote, we just went over this with my wife. By the way, my wife is also a physician. I met her in medical school, right? She is far more competitive than I am. But I'll tell you this much. My one quote I live by is loyalty is a two-way street. If I'm getting it from you, you better believe I'm giving it to you. So loyalty for me is definitely something that I value more than everything. But I'll give it to you in another analogy. So in the world of medicine, let's say, we're all dogs. Okay? All dogs. Some dogs are show dogs. They're very prized poodles, they're corgis, they're something that will go sit in an academic facility and say, I've created this, I'm great, I did research in this. I'm a dog, but I'm a wolf. I'm going to go hunt and get my own food. But I don't do that on my own. I make very strategic allies. I make very strategic teams. I'm definitely an alpha. I'm definitely going to lead. But if I don't have my pack, I'm in trouble. So the ambition for me comes from one very big thing, is that number one, I don't want to let my family down, right? So there's a fear or anxiety. And number two, if I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't, I won't. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. There's no reason to vacillate. There's no trying. There's only doing or not doing, right? And if you tell me, Vic, I need you to build business, I'm going to go build business. If I can't, I'll say I won't. If I can, I'm going to do it, period. So that drive is not something that's, oh, I've got to be better. I've got to be the best. I don't need to be the best. I really don't care, right? I have a very healthy and happy life that I'm, doing far beyond what I ever dreamed of. But it's just because I can keep doing it. It's not that I'm killing myself. Now, you talk about drive and something that I want to let people know. I haven't taken a day off in 5 years now. 5 years and change. Not one day off. Christmas, New Year's. I read every single day of my life. I read on Saturdays and
You've
Sundays
not taken
without
a day
a doubt.
off from reading, you mean?
From reading or building
Okay.
business.
Right.
I've taken conference calls on New Year's Day, actually with you,
Yes.
once I found out, our past life. I've taken conference calls on every day of my life. I've done reading on every day of my life in the last 5 years. And I never, ever, ever stop working. Ever. If I'm awake, I'm working. And also enjoying my family, but working. Right? Because I can. It's not a detriment. It's not weighing on me. It's something I love to do. My family's very involved in my business. I mean, my wife is my biggest consultant and consigliere, right? My wife tells me things I need to know and how to work and what to do, right? So there's a very healthy relationship between my family and my work because my work is me. It's part of me. So the drive is there only because, like I said, I'm not the best at what I do, but I will do it every day continuously. And that, once I've worked 365 days, no one's worked harder than me. Once I've worked on every single day for a little bit, no one's read more than me. No one's built their business more than me. No one's done more than me to innovate. No one's done more than me to meet with people, to build contracts, to build concepts, and to build relationships. No one's done more. So that's the only way I look at life, is if I do more, there's no one that can even come close to me. And that's what I've done, right? We've talked, millions of times, but if ever there is needed, I can always chat. It's not hard, right? The difference is I don't have that in me where I say I'd rather just go do something and not do and sit on a couch and do nothing. That doesn't exist in me. It exists in me to do something for the benefit, right? And that's sort of, I guess, the difference between me and other people.
No, it's wonderful to get that. So, and you're saying this drive is not, you do not see the burden of this drive. You're able to do this from, and just because you enjoy that process. It's not that.
Yeah, of course. But there's always, look, I'm not going to lie to anyone. There's always two sides of a coin, right? If you're doing something, you're not doing else. So the opportunity cost of there's always an opportunity cost of anything you do, period. If you're working, you're not with your family.
Of course.
If I'm working, I'm not working on myself to be healthy, right? To work out, I'm overweight, things like that. You have to come to terms with, if you're working, you're not with your family. Or if you're family, you're not working. And that's fine. And I can understand that. And there will definitely be times that you have to make choices. But the area where you get kind of lost is the procrastination, which doesn't help either side. The area where you're doing things that don't help either the things that you love or your job, those don't help anything. I don't have those vices. And many people will, right? To play golf for 6 hours a day, 3 days a week, where you're not doing anything but just enjoying. I don't have that drive. I don't have the drive to go and drink 20 drinks a night and have fun. Just don't have that drive, right? I'm lucky enough to not have any substance abuses where I don't need to go do that drive, or vices where I want to go. My life is work and family, and those two I can easily reconcile. 168 hours a week. And if I have some sleep in there, I'm pretty easy to work with.
And now going to your business education, right? How did that business education shape anything that you did, and how much did it really?
So drastically. So
It did drastically.
Okay, drastically. And let me tell you why. So I was in fellowships, right, at the University of Chicago, which are notoriously very difficult. They pay for me to go to business school, so they expect me to do well in business school, but I have to go at nighttime.
Well, why do they pay?
So I work.
Why does a fellowship in
That's
radiology
an incentive.
pay business?
It's an incentive.
Oh.
So now that I've done very well in my life, University of Chicago is claiming me as one of their greatest graduates, right? It's just an incentive. Now more and more and more brilliant people want to go there. Look what Dr. Sobti did. He's an MBA, blah, blah, blah. But the problem that they don't tell you is I've got a 12-hour day of radiology during the day. 12 hours, right? It's like 2 hours of informatics, let's say, another 10 hours of reading in the reading room. I'm there from 8 to 6 almost every day, right? Plus I take an hour to get there from informatics, plus another hour afterwards. So from 8 to 6, maybe 7 to 7, I'm essentially in the reading room. And then I have another 3-hour class at night. So from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., I'm just gone. Either working, doing homework, reading images, learning more informatics, lecture. That's a 15-hour day, and that's 5 days a week just for or 6 days a week for the reading room. So right there's 90 hours a week. Plus on Sunday I have class and homework. So I'm working 100 hours a week for 2 straight years. I have a newborn at home. I'm sorry, I have a 3-year-old and a newborn at home. Right? I graduate. I start to essentially, I run a hospital during the day, and I work as a radiologist at night. So the 4 years of fellowship, business school, and my initial operations in a hospital, those 4 years taught me that 100 hours a week, if I can do it with 2 kids and a wife, I can do anything. That is giving your entire life away. That's hard work for 4 years, which no one's done. No one. I mean, iBankers talk about the fact that they work 80 hours a week and they close deals. 100 hours a week when you're already done with medical school. Already done. I'm 33. I'm not 22. Yeah. I did residency already, which was 80 hours a week. This is after residency. So I'm already 32 years old. For 32 years, I've already worked 80 hours a week. Now at the end, I'm working 100 hours a week. So it didn't teach me, it did teach me standards in business, right? Like ethics and credits and debits and financial accounting, which I had zero, right? I've never done anything business related. Even the a debit is bad, a credit is good type thing, I didn't even know. I didn't know, standards in GAAP accounting. I didn't know standards in financial accounting. I didn't know standards in economics, which is very important for me to see supply and demand, right? I didn't know how to undercut prices could lead to a better thing. I didn't know how undercutting prices could lead to a worse thing. So just and not only that, I'm around the most brilliant minds there are. These are full-time MBA students that are kicking my butt because they've already done 4 years of some form of accounting or 4 years of consulting, and now they're going back and they're so much further along in business than me, right? So again, I'm not the best. So it taught me so much, not only about myself, which was number one, the 100 hours a week, I'm getting smoked in class. These kids are so much smarter than me, but the fact that I can do it and keep up is giving me another sense of drive. Now, the real thing that business school has given me is when I walk into a room, no one questions my credentials, ever. No one should, no one ever should, right? No one has, and no one ever should. I've done more from better schools than anyone in the world. So when I say something, I know what I'm talking about. And it gives me a little bit of confidence, of credence when I speak. Right? Confidence and credence. So if I say something in a business sense, people are going to understand I know what I'm talking about, right? But the biggest thing is it's getting me in a room. Previously, if it was a business discussion, as a radiologist, I wouldn't just invite any radiologist in there. He may have said, I know business, I've done a lot of business, my company's great. But I would still have that, question, does he know what he's talking about? Or does she know what she's talking about? And for me, now it validates everything I'm saying, right? So it's given me, obviously, the credentials I needed, but it's given me the opportunity that I otherwise needed as well, right? So to invest in corporations, now if I'm on their board, it looks a lot better that I understand the business, what they're talking about. I understand what your go-to-market presence is. I understand where you want to go and how to do it. If I was just a radiologist, I wouldn't really understand outside of radiology or billing what to do. And this has given me a little bit of a leg up.
If you had to go back and say for a minute, hypothetically, you don't get it as a fellowship sponsored, but knowing what you know today, if you go back, you
Yeah.
would even pay for the Chicago Business School and do it? You would?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1000%. So I had the opportunity to go to Harvard for a fellowship, Stanford for a fellowship, University of Chicago with a business school degree fellowship. Without a doubt, I chose University
So
of Chicago.
yeah. So you
No
would do
questions
the
asked.
business. Yeah.
With the business. So I knew with my engineering background, with my fellowships, that if I rounded my education out with some business, and again, I'm not a business master. I am a master's in business administration, but I'm not a business master. I at least understand. So to run a company, to run anything, there's nothing that's new to
Exactly.
me
And
in
that's
the
a good
world of health,
leeway to get
right?
into that discussion is radiology and your teleradiology operations and business, both, right? In the sense,
Absolutely.
component. Tell us a little more about how you came to choose this kind of career building, as well as how is it different than what I don't know. So I think you know reasonably well of how India operates.
Sure.
But in from a US perspective, from a teleradiology perspective, just help us understand what is exactly this business about and how you choose this and how is it serving you in general, right?
Sure. So the first job I had out of fellowships in business school was I ran a hospital. I was the chief medical information officer of a hospital in Chicago. But at nighttime, I was reading from my basement for hospitals in critical access zones of America, meaning there's very few people there, right? It's the one hospital that serves a very large population, but there's not a lot of healthcare there, right? So the way that America combated the dearth of healthcare in these areas is they did teleradiology. This was a company called Virtual Radiologic, $4 billion company, huge company. And I noticed that this teleradiology company was serving these populations better than if a hospital was sitting there overnight. So a boots on the ground radiologist is great, but really the efficiencies there are so pathetic because it's one radiologist that has to do streamlined work. Whether there's a trauma that comes in, they have to look at that, and they're missing the appendectomy on the back end, or they're missing the cardiology, the heart failure on the back end. They're doing something, right? So the technology of having teleradiology support was so powerful. And remember, I love engineering, I love tech, right? I love the business model that we don't need to have a boot on the ground, so you don't need to pay as much. We can read whatever we read, we'll bill you for because we're reading from any upfront. So right off the bat, I'm seeing teleradiology as a very viable source and a very powerful tool to combat healthcare. Okay. At the same time, in 2014, a very powerful Indian VC in America, his name is Vinod Khosla Ventures, had decreed by 2020
I
radiology
know
will
that.
not
Yeah,
exist.
yeah.
Do you remember that, right? So artificial intelligence, which is true, understands pattern recognition. So no one should be a radiologist anymore because AI will be reading everything by 2020. So 2014, I'm looking at teleradiology. And by 2016, we have such a gap in the amount of people that are radiologists and the amount of scans ordered that we can't keep up.
Exactly.
We just can't keep up, right? And it's continued, by the way. Vinod Khosla has almost created the healthcare problem with radiology. 21,975 radiologists in America, which means every radiologist would have to read 14,000 studies a year just to keep up. And that's growing, so it's impossible. It's nearly impossible. So I leave the hospital world because I didn't really like how patients are treated in hospitals. I don't believe in it. They're looked at as billing numbers rather than actual patients. It wasn't for me, and I didn't want to work at night anymore. I joined a startup teleradiology company. My friend had started it, and we originally did $2 million in gross revenue. It was doing great. I grew it to $6 million, and rather than sharing that with me, he pocketed the whole money.
Oh gosh.
From 2015 through 2017, I grew it almost triple. And instead, he said, well, it's my company. Thank you for the help. I'm keeping the $4 million. I'll give you $10,000. I said, well, That's where we
Oh
break.
gosh.
Let me do this on my own. So in 2017, I started my own
But you
teleradiology
didn't,
company.
it was not
Going
that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur. This was organic in the sense you went
very organic.
into the hospital, you saw that this probably is not a very viable thing, teleradiology might make more sense, got the actual experience, and then kind of organically grew to become an entrepreneur.
And let me tell you, as organic as it gets, I didn't even go to the lucrative money of hospital contracts. I went to outpatient imaging centers. So in America, we have many hospitals, and just like in India, I should say, but also there are standalone
Exactly.
imaging centers. Right? And those imaging centers are cheaper, as good of a magnet, and faster than a hospital. They get paid much less because hospital rates are just better in America with insurance, and these imaging centers are kind of handcuffed. So I was noticing, hey man, these are probably underserved because no radiologist will go say, I'll read an image from an outpatient imaging center for $80, but I'll read the same exact image from a hospital and make $300. So all these radiologists wanted to work in a hospital because they're making $500,000 to $1 million a year, reading 3,000 studies a year, which is maybe 15 a day, 20 a day. So there was an underserved population of radiologists reading for outpatient imaging centers. Or hospital radiologists as a whole would take it on as an extra. Fine, we can read some of your films, but we won't read all of them. I said, let me read all your films. You have no radiologist working for you. I got my first client in 2017. I'm up to my 63rd client in 2025. But these hospitals, or these, outpatient imaging centers now have 20, 30 imaging centers under management. So we read for 450 specific magnets in America because there's just so much imaging going on that we don't have the bandwidth for. So it was definitely not, I'm going to build a radiology company around outpatient imaging center, because not at all. This was, I started a company, we kind of did that. He took all the money. Let me see if I can start that way. I started that way and it grew like gangbusters.
Wow. Wow. And so scaling, so how many years this is, you've been,
This is 8 years,
8 years
technically
you've
8
been
years.
scaling the
Yes.
company. And I also know that you
Yes.
have different ventures. Are there other ventures? What do they do? And
Okay. So my company is called Innovative Radiology PC because I knew Vinod Khosla did say AI is coming. So the first thing I did is let's get some efficiencies going, right? Because it is true. Whenever there is tech, there's efficiencies. The first thing I hired was a transcription team. I could essentially say, meniscal tear, medial meniscal tear in the posterior horn right meniscus, medial collateral ligament strain, and then they would create my report for me. And that's all I had to say. It was very easy. My patients were not very old. They were 1 or 2 pathologies, so I had a perfect population of patients for this. So the efficiencies of my transcription team become, now I'm better than every other radiology group already, just with the efficiencies. But let's go further. Let's start building in some artificial intelligence into the PACS. So rather than build it directly into the PACS, I have a venture arm. I make money each year, and rather than buying a boat or a car or a Tyrannosaurus Rex head like all these radiologists do in America, I do have a giant home, you saw it, but that's after 8 years, right? I started building in efficiencies to my PACS through my venture arm. I first partnered with a group building spinal MR 6 years ago, Colombo, as you know. Now we're FDA cleared. We're reading essentially every spine that comes through my PACS is pre-read by an FDA cleared, 510 cleared robot that is reading spines. We have a demonstrative tool called Multis Medical for any demonstration for depositions. We have a tool that makes you 3D representation. I've worked with Deep Tech previously, which was a company we both knew and worked with, that have X-ray clearance. AZ Med is now built into the PACS, which is all of the X-rays for your fractures of your MSK. Those built into your PACS. So essentially, we have Cortex, which reads brains and prostates. Every single exam that comes into my PACS today is already pre-read by a FDA cleared robot.
So you see this,
Then
that's a great point to discuss AI in radiology. Do you see
Sure.
AI in radiology? And of course, you see AI in radiology getting more and more used. But what I would love to know more is how effectively it is doing. Anyone doing far better, good examples that you have in mind, and how do you see this going in what kind of direction? Because I have, of course, a
Sure.
lot of views on that, and we would love
Of
to
course.
know what you are thinking, and we can chat on some of that.
So, first and foremost, AI in radiology needs to increase efficiency. That's its only role today. It's not to take over the reading, it's to increase efficiency. So, number one, if AI lives on a separate module or computer than your PACS, it becomes cumbersome and it becomes slowing rather than efficient. So the way that radiology AI has built itself into your PACS is number one, it can tell you, hey, I think this is abnormal. Why don't you read this first? Right? So we don't, if you're missing a stroke, you're missing a bleed in the brain, those things are very important and they actually mean time means something. If you read it later, this patient could die. So the efficiencies there in terms of list management, number one, is off the charts. AI Doc, Viz.AI, companies like that. They're allowing you to do list management, which allows you to read the stats faster, the stat cases faster than you otherwise would if it was a universal work list. Or the tech would tell you, hey, I think there's something abnormal here, which they may miss. So that's number one. Number two, pre-reporting on X-ray, which is essentially what deep tech can do with chest X-ray. If it's a normal chest X-ray with has a 99% sensitivity, give me a normal macro and I can sign it off quickly. And I can trust it because it's very quick, it's very clear. If that lives on a different module, then I've got to copy and paste. It's taking me the same time because I'm looking at the image, looking over here, copying and pasting over here. Just the eyeball movement is 30 seconds to a minute when I could probably read that within 10 seconds anyways. So if you can build it into the PACS like companies like Deep Tech or Genki have done, then it becomes a powerful tool for efficiency. The spinal readers are still yet years away. The brain readers are still yet years away, except, of course, I've created it. And it's now built into the PACS using a language called HL7, which is the universal language for DICOM. So when this spinal reader sees something, rather than giving you a PDF that you have to go open, read, and then look back and see if it's right, it's already built into my PACS. Very different than how other AI products work, right? Either they're going to want you to buy their PACS, right? Augmento or whatnot, or they'll want you to buy their product, which can work with your PACS, and you'll have to look at it on a different window, but it's still, so this
So
is very different.
you
So
basically are saying
AI,
it should be integrated within your current workflow, right? Whatever
yes,
that AI
yes.
is.
So imagine if your lane, so when you're driving in your car and your lane sensing, meaning there's a car next to you, only came to your phone and you got a notification, that doesn't help you when you're changing lanes. It's got to be built into the car's module, right? Otherwise, if you hear a notification, you're looking here, you've already hit the car to the right of you,
Absolutely.
right? So in the same sense, when you're reading an MRI, you need it built into the car. You need it built into the DICOM. You need it built into what you're looking at. Otherwise, you're looking elsewhere. It's not going to be a very beneficial tool like CAD used to be. So we've had AI, artificial intelligence, in breast mammography for 25 years, 30 years. The problem has and always has been, it's on a separate module. You got to go to a separate computer system. Now, obviously, that's being built a little better with nodule detection for chest X-ray, for chest CTs, for breast mammography. It's now built in. But before, if you had to go to a different computer to see was I right or wrong, you're losing so much productivity. Now, back in the day when you made so much money per scan, it didn't matter. You were loving it. Today, we told you have to read 14,000 studies to keep up, and they keep on reducing your reimbursements. It becomes more cumbersome. You'd rather just not use it. So AI has a long way to go. Number one, it has to be built, right? MRI, it's barely scraping the surface. Right now, MRI spine is the only thing, and there's only 2 companies that have it, and they're not that good, right? We don't have a cervical, and we don't have a thoracic. We only have the lumbar. CT abdomen pelvis, there's very few products, which is the number one ordered.
So if I'm wanting to build a company, AI company in radiology, what would be those 2 to 3 applications that you think would be the most promising ones?
So essentially, the number one tool that hasn't been built is CT abdomen and pelvis, right? which is a very common problem in the emergency room. I go in with abdominal pain, appendicitis, pancreatitis, gallstone. So many things can go wrong. There's not a tool that can speed that up for us. There's tools that can speed up our dictation, AI dictation, great. There's tools that can visualize things a little better, make it clearer, right? Like AIRS or subtle medical, things like that, Swift MR. There's tools that we can use for nodule detection for chest, right? But there's not really a tool that can speed up our emergency medicine, which is not only looking at everything, but giving you a report. Even the head CT one, there's not a report that comes with it. It just says, please read this quickly, and we can bill you. We can bill,
you would
which is
appreciate
great
a
for the
report
hospital.
coming in, because many radiologists don't want a report. They think that it's that.
So I don't get why they wouldn't, because dictating a full report also takes time. If you have it in front of you, and what these new dictation AI softwares are, is you just dictate the positives, and it makes the report for you anyways.
Yeah.
Right? So a report coming in is the same thing. And we do that with macro building, right? We've mapped every one of our studies to a macro. So if it's a CT head, we'll get the macro. Based on age, we'll get the macro old or macro young, right? And we have 300 macros that we have brought in. Now that's not an automated process, it's a manual process. So that's where the transcriptionists come in. But just bringing the right macro in for my patient with the history, the technique, and the comparison, it's taken 30 seconds to a minute away from my reading.
Right.
Just the transcription. The AI findings takes another 2 minutes off of my time. So what would otherwise take me 7 minutes to read something is now taking me 5. And with the efficiencies I've built in, with the findings I've built in, it's now taking me 4 to 3. And now I'm twice to 3 times faster than any other radiologist.
So you're saying one is CT abdomen and pelvic doing something faster than today. The value prop you're saying is in doing it faster and giving you a report, right? In CT. What would be the next?
Yeah. So honestly, X-ray's already
X-ray's there.
Right? There's many X-ray tools. So X-ray is obviously the most commonly ordered product. X-ray's built. So build that into a PACS, you're good. CT chest is built. River Rain, Viz AI, AI Doc, you name it. They have nodule detection. Build it into your PACS, you're good. So chest, CT, and X-ray, good. Ultrasound has a way to go.
Yes.
It's still operator dependent. And there's tools now that if you can put it in properly, it can build you a report. So that's pretty good, right? If the operator, the ultrasound technologist, can put in the proper measurements, for instance, of the liver or the spleen into a DICOM image, it can actually bring it over and you can have that in your report. So that's pretty good. CT head is the big one everyone worked on. That's good. Build it in your PACS, you're good. MRI is the Wild West.
You think a lot of scope in MR to do. One is spine. What else?
100%. So Colombo is working on not only lumbar, they have Cervantes and Thor that are being built for cervical, thoracic, lumbar. If that can be a pre-reader built into your PACS, 60% of imaging in outpatient centers are spine. You're good. Cortex, icometrics, brain key, combinostics, all those are brain MR volumetrics plays. And they can also find something wrong with your brain. But they don't actually tell you this is a tumor and give you a report. So building that brain deep learning, which is already out there, right? Those 4 companies are worth $1 billion between the 4 of them. Cortex, Combinostics, Icometrics, BrainKey. Those are huge companies, right? If they can build it into your reporting with HL7, rather than give you a DICOM pictograph, you've saved me 3 minutes of dictating. And one of the things that Cortex does, which I'm an investor in, by the way, is it can take your brain lesion and it continually measures that over time, right? And it's now an objective measure. So it's telling me, is it getting better, worse, or the same, which is very important in brain tumors, very important. The problem is I've got to look at its imaging and then I've got to build my own report with it. Why don't you just build it into a report? So MR is slowly getting there, but it's not built into the report. MR abdomen doesn't exist. Nothing. So CT abdomen pelvis and MR abdomen pelvis, still nothing. And those are still very ordered, right? Because there's so many different organ systems. There's MR elastography, which will look at the fat of the liver, build that into the PACS, build that into my report. But CT, I don't know if there's pancreatitis, colitis, um, cholecystitis. I mean, there's so many things it could be.
There is an AI on the uro part. Urology has come.
Sure.
Kidney stone quantification.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right. Not overall.
But that's one process of 12. I need all 12, and I need a report built. Right? That's the most commonly ordered CT in the outside of CT head. It's the most commonly ordered CT in any ER. If something is helping all these ER physicians read these, or ER doc radiologists read these, we're going to speed up that big gap of not enough radiologists and too many scans, right? That should be on the horizon.
Super. Yeah.
I think MRI is still so far away.
But do you see in the next 5 to 10 years? So we're going back to the COSLA prediction and stuff like that. And I'm not saying necessarily in that direction, but where do you see in 5 to 10 years AI in radiology playing out?
Love this question because I get asked all the time. I'm a huge proponent of AI. Invested in 1, 2, 3, like 5 different AI companies. Myself, built into my packs, right? With Cortex, with Deep Tech, with Colombo, obviously. So
I think post this podcast, you might start getting 4 or 5 calls more for.
And please, on YouTube, give my cell phone number. I'm happy to speak with anyone. Anybody wants any further knowledge from me, I can give it to you.
I'm going to give them my number. First call me.
Please do. Please do. We split all profits. So here's where I'm at. In the next 10 years, we're going to have a robust amount of tools built. Some will be good, some will be bad, some will be okay. The good ones will still have problems. The bad ones will have a lot of problems. There's going to be a price difference between all 3, good, bad, ugly. And then in 10 years, radiologists will be using it in some method or some way. It'll be like 75% of people will be using it, 25 will not. Right now, it's probably 5% of people use, or 10, let's say 25% of people using it, 75 not. I think that's going to switch in 10 years. But the handoff is going to be 20 to 30 years. So I think it's a further ways away. Because number one,
so when
these tools aren't sophisticated.
Completely becoming an automated.
Completely autonomous. And I think eventually what will happen is one will go and it will slowly ramp up. So eventually, chest x-ray for tuberculosis in sub-Saharan Africa will not be read by a radiologist anymore.
Hopefully by then tuberculosis will not remain. We'll eradicate.
Correct. But with what every vaccine we're taking away now, who the hell knows what we're getting, right?
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy's taking away all the vaccines. So who knows? Measles will come back. But I think chest x-rays for tuberculosis will not be read, right? We know this. But in sub-Saharan Africa, we don't know. Eventually, once those are taken, then it may become the x-rays in 10 years, which are fracture or no fracture, right? However, it may miss a tumor, but fracture or no fracture, at least, we'll see quickly. I think that the sophistication of X-ray is easier to do. It's 1 static image or 3 static images. MR is 90 DICOM images, very different. So the sophistication needs to be there. So the handoff will be very slow for MRI. But the problem is more and more MRIs are being ordered because it's becoming cheaper, easier, and faster. There's companies that can do 4 sequences of a brain in 4 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So once you get an MRI of a brain, it takes
AI will help it become faster as well. Right? In terms of
which is what they're working on. So I think there will be, not in my working lifetime, a handoff.
I tend to agree. Also, the big question of this, right, as in cars as well, but cars is one thing. The whole thing is, it's a lot of, as you rightly said, tasks will start getting replaced. But we can't confuse that with the job, because there is an accountability behind the job, which has to remain with someone. You can't say AI got wrong, so I can't do anything. There is an accountability here which takes many other non-clinical factors into consideration before making a decision. Like in India, there might be sometimes a situation where doing a CT might be the best thing for clinically. But it's not just a clinical decision, it's an economical and clinical decision. Right? So the doctor and the patients know that the best way probably is right now ultrasound filter it out, and if required, do the CT, which in US they might not need to because the economics is not a big deal or might not be a big problem as of now, which might not remain so. But the thing is, any decision is not only a clinical decision at the end of the day, and there
Very
has to be
good.
an accountability taken considering many things. So I think in that sense, it's not so easy to replace that accountability,
Very
right?
well said. So, and let me tell you why also, just in a very, so right now, when we say, oh, AI is going to read a scan, we only look at the false negative rate. Oh my God, it missed my tumor, which, fine. The problem isn't that. The problem is the false
Positive.
positive rate, because it's going to say, I think I see a nodule, which it could be composition of shadows, it could be something else. Then now you're doing further scanning, which is a drain on our
Exactly.
healthcare system. Then I'm following up a tumor for 10 years when I would have said this is benign. So the drain on that, and we've seen this. So a big push in America, which I'm very much a part of, but I don't fully agree with, is there's these full body screening exams. You come in when you're
Yeah.
young, you say, I want my head to toe scan with an MRI because I want to know what's going on. And you're 22 years old.
And no symptoms,
And
nothing,
then now I find no symptoms, nothing,
no
no
reason to
reason.
do it.
But you just want that peace of mind for $2,000, and I find something, which I inevitably will. A cyst in your liver, a cyst in your kidney, a benign tumor, which people live with that they didn't know they had until they were 70. And now we're following those scans up every year with a pre and post MRI.
The healthcare costs, instead of going down,
and
it's
that's
going
just
up.
the screening. It's going way up. And the healthcare costs in
It's
America,
crazy.
first of all, 22% of GDP, which is like $6
It's
trillion.
more than India's GDP.
It's only going up. It's only going up. It's only going up. And we're blaming the doctors. But what are we supposed to do? Because the problem is if I don't call something, I get sued.
And that was one
So
another
my-
thing that I learned from you, even in more detail, though I knew it theoretically, is that the legal system is very entrenched in the American. I joked after I heard from you last time in the conversation that almost every case there is a legal guy, and I told you that in India the doctor and the lawyer hardly meet each other. Unless they're relatives, and in most cases they're not relatives as well. No, but in your case,
it's
lawyers
unbelievable.
everywhere, isn't it? In America.
So it's not only legal, it's legal plus insurance, right? So insurance I view as part of the legal entity, right? So number one, insurance, first you have to go through legal rigmarole to get a patient a scan. It's called pre-approval. So the insurance won't pay, which is essentially a legal rule stating if he doesn't have 6 weeks of therapy plus a chest x-ray, you can't get an MRI, which is a weird thing, but it's true in America. So every doctor's handcuffed already. This guy has abdominal pain. I need to get him an MRI, but I got to go through all these hoops. Then if you say, I'm not going to go through the hoops, I'm just going to treat him empirically. Turns out to have pancreatic cancer, you never got an MRI. Now you're sued. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And the reason that the legal teams are so entrenched is because healthcare is a legal entity in America, right? It's a private industry. It's not a government rule. If it was a government universal healthcare, we wouldn't have people suing because now it's capped at a rate. If you miss, you miss. Just like you can't sue the Department of Driving if you don't get your license right away because the place was closed. You can't sue them. Just like a doctor, if you were a general doctor at a government hospital, it's rare you can get sued. You're doing that for sorry, this is something we missed. You're part of the government healthcare. So this is a business entity. $6 trillion in healthcare is really a private sector of America. And anytime there's a private sector, there needs to be rules and regulations or bylaws, which the lawyers take about $4 trillion a year, right? And that's through insurance, that's through regulatory, that's through obviously malpractice or malfeasance, that's obviously through, the cases that I see, which is personal injury. So there's a lot of nuance to healthcare in America. It's not I treat patient pays me, we're happy. There's overhead, there's administration, there's hospital costs, there's negotiations, reductions, which is
big
so
chunk of American US healthcare, and I was reading about it, and also when I came to US for business. So a huge chunk of it is administrative cost, much higher than any other country in terms of proportion to the overall healthcare
So
cost.
since 1970, the growth of the healthcare costs has exactly mirrored the growth of the administrative costs in medicine. The physician's cost is the same. The patient treatment cost is the same. But remember, within the healthcare costs, the regulatory, there's the pharmaceutical drugs that are made, which are 30s of 40s of thousands of dollars per. I mean, it's insane. The administration in medicine is taking all the money. It's not. I'm not pocketing $6 trillion naturally, right?
Do you
As
see
the
AI
nurses are
playing a
not
role there as well? I think in US
100%.
especially, there might be a big role for AI to reduce the administrative costs and save efficiencies.
1,000,000%. The problem is where is the dedication to do that when that's your job?
Whose motivation and invest is there?
Motivate. The doctors aren't going to pay money to audit. Now you can, and those will exist, right? AI generated secretaries and patient care techs, those exist. But the actual financial stuff, that's a person. The administration strategy, AI can't take my strategy. Even though ChatGPT, tomorrow I say, I want to expand my hospital going south, ChatGPT will give you an entire playbook. They still have 10 people in strategy department going through with what we do, making PowerPoint presentations, right? That is where we really could. The tasks should be automated with AI. But and in the end, these guys are not going to give up their job. 90% of healthcare CEOs are not doctors. I mean, they make more money than me.
So, what's from a playbook perspective? What is the next playbook for Dr. Vikram Sobti? How is that? What's on your mind for the next 10 years?
So, building out my PACS, my picture archiving computing system, as a fully autonomous AI platform.
You want to build that yourself?
And then I'm building it slowly. So with my connections with the AI companies I'm either on the board of or I have investments with, we have almost automated nearly all reads. We have a transcription team that puts those reads into an appropriate report panel. Therefore, then I want to sell my software as a service, SaaS, right? Then the PACS becomes a very powerful tool. If you just run your images through my PACS, your efficiency will go from 9 minutes to read to 3 minutes to read, which then I'm bringing you back, 6 minutes of your day. You're reading 3 in the time it took you to read 1, meaning you're reading 20 scans an hour rather than the 7 you were originally reading, and meaning you're making a ton of money. So either you join my group or I can sell you this service. And eventually what I see happening is I partner with enough people or I invest in enough people where they kind of take off and I can recoup some of those benefits, or I can sell my company to the right bidder. I have a lot of very good clients. So if I were to sell, I think they'd stay put with whomever buys me. I have a very good patient population in which I'm not billing. So I don't bill Medicare. I don't bill Medicaid. I have invoices that can go out on an Excel sheet. So this is money that comes in each year. The EBITDA is very strong, right? The overhead is very low because I've automated a lot of the processes that's there. So I think eventually if I can become robust enough, either I can partner with a larger AI firm where they'll buy me, or I can partner with other radiology firms, they'll buy me, or I can build this thing organically and have 1 million scans under management, and now we're a large teleradiology group. You can go public. You can sell it to another larger teleradiology.
Both seem to be a possibility on your mind. Is one is going the tech side of you and building the software and technology in especially AI and a service, or even scaling the operations from a radiology perspective. Of course, use of AI would be there in there as well, but primarily actually do the service delivery business and scale it. Right.
Well, the reason I can do that is because the services department of the radiology side, the true reading, is so cash flow positive that I can fund the tech, which is usually cash flow losing, negative. Right? Most tech companies are losing money, so I can fund one to do the other to build both together, and then once it becomes a united entity, you still have significant EBITDA once this meets its threshold.
Absolutely.
So if you're EBITDA very positive on the services side, and you can make that tech break even, you become a very powerful AI company.
In all your plans, do you see where do you see India as?
The backbone. Truthfully, the backbone. So my transcription team, which I will need until AI can officially report, which I don't think is until 3 or 4 years away, is essential to making that report proper, right? So the transcription of what the AI sees into my reporting, that's what really the cost cutting time is. That's the time saver. That's the 9 minutes down to 4 minutes. The AI finding my thing is really 1 minute. But India has the tech and the people, right? America tech doesn't exist, and if they do, they want $50 million for the idea. India has the tech that can get, which is already working, already proven, already making money for much less. The manpower in India just so far exceeds the manpower in America. But the brain and the amount of people understanding how important this relies in India, because the tech from Bangalore, the tech from Pune, is now growing at a faster level than it was in Silicon Valley, which has its own value. It's growing faster than EU, which doesn't have the money to put into AI because their payment model for healthcare is a very different beast. So I think India is the only place. Now, China and Korea, I don't know if they're going to beat you, because eventually they will. They have the same problem. They have too many people, not enough providers, that they'll have to innovate. And I think they're going to copy whatever they can see and then build them naturally. But I think India has been able to create for some time now. I think if they partner with the right American teams, they can make it more commercial rather than just Indian tool.
Even the Indian healthcare sector, which is at a very different stage than US, but is now really growing because it's reached a critical. Do you ever see India as an opportunity for, say, starting service delivery, like radiology centers and imaging centers and
we had discussed this. So the difference is the price per unit, per widget, is so much lower in India. Just the scan.
No, not just teleradiology. I mean, even say through the route of investment in diagnostic centers, actual the radiology centers and imaging centers, not necessarily through the teleradiology route, because now India is growing from a hospital. So India has seen a lot of PE investment in hospital sector in the last 5 to 10 years, and as a lot of money has come into the hospital sector. The next phase is going to be imaging centers and diagnostic centers, and there will be a lot of consolidation that will likely to happen.
I mean, I would, as an inquisitive guy, as a radiologist, I would love it. I would look at any proposal, because I think, truthfully, the reading time and reading, I could do that, whether it's in India, whether it's in America. It doesn't matter to me. I would obviously have to, and the cost for development, if it's much less, becomes something that's very investable. I would love it. There's 1.7 billion people in India, and imaging becomes more and more prominent in all these people. So I think look, that would be a great way to guarantee volume into my packs. I would do it in a heartbeat. In all honesty, I haven't even looked into it.
Yeah, probably we will talk more about it, but I think there might be an opportunity to see it in that ways from a long game perspective, right? I mean, I'm not saying, but there is lots happening in terms of branding chain of radiology centers in India, because it's a private market. It's more private market and out of pocket market than US is. So it's really competitive. A brand has a role, and there's a lot that's happening there.
And I believe my return on investment would be much quicker because the cost to do so is you don't have certificates of needs. You don't have a dearth of patients.
You have very less legal costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see geopolitical and probably so geopolitical situations and the change that you see nowadays across, be it US and in other places? Do you see that somewhere as what do you see from an US future because of this geopolitical changes? Where is it going?
So
how will it impact, say, entrepreneurial in healthcare and radiologists in healthcare, or even bigger ones, right? So,
great question. So, I'm not political at all, but I do understand it's a very important factor. with the current administration, this is the chance for India to become the greatest ally of America.
Yeah.
It's a once in a generation moment.
And why do you say that?
Pakistan. So I'll go through it. Pakistan historically was India's ally
US
when
ally.
Afghanistan,
Yeah.
Russia. Yes, United States. So at the time, Russia was a U.S. ally after the Cold War. China was a big time U.S. ally when all of our production
Shifted.
went over to China. This administration has made it very clear we don't like any of those three. We don't. So the greatest advocate for America with the largest workforce in America and a large donor to this political regime is India. In the political leaders of India, Modi, being friends with Donald Trump. I mean, it's an opportunity of a once in a generation for the two countries to unite. And rather than send Apple products over to China, send Apple products over to India. Rather than the data and tech go over to Taiwan or China, go to India. Rather than Silicon Valley's brain drain from China, brain drain from India, create a linked membership of India, which has the people, the products, and the want, with America, which is business. It's the once in a generation time. So that number one, there's a huge opportunity. Number two, there is a very massive problem in America, and I think we've echoed this many times. The healthcare costs are outrageous, and the provider ability to keep up with the amount of patients is impossible. Which means that there needs to be some form of relationship, whether it's bringing more H-1B visa Indian radiology residencies or something more, trained physicians from India over, which we've cut down in the recent years, or have some form of telereporting systems where there's AI software in India, or help with, some form of transcribing or transcriptionist like I'm doing, but make that more robust in every field. That sort of connection where I think we need it will happen. I just think we're coming to a crossroads where either we're going to be just unable to serve any of our patients, which is very dangerous, or we're going to have to find innovative ways to treat them. And I think something between a help with India's tech or people with our health administration will be something there. I do believe, though, and I will harp on this as much as I can, I've never understood why India and America's relations weren't the best. We are aligned in many different ways. The Middle East is not really a friend to America. It's not really a friend to India. China's not really a friend to America. It's not really a friend to India. Right? There's disputed territories everywhere. Russia is not really a friend to America. It's not really a friend to India. It just becomes odd to me that with all of the resources in India, meaning human capital, we haven't taken more advantage, is a bad word, but more of a relationship between the two. And I think that will slowly happen when you see that our interests are not, we don't have to be the same, we're aligned.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Modi can grow the country to be the greatest country in the world, and Trump can want to grow. But our interests are very much aligned.
And both, and also both are English speaking to a great extent, right? In the sense there are a lot of English speaking. So English as a medium to communicate is much easier than there are more English speaking people in India than Russia, China, Pakistan. We
share a common ancestor. We share, whether we like it or not, we share a common ancestor in Britain. Yeah. Whether we like it or not. Our entire education, our entire legal, and our entire transit systems are built on the British monarchy that came and obviously occupied both countries. As far as I'm concerned, it has been far too long that we've overlooked the relationship that should exist. And I don't know if it's because Britain obviously controlled for many years and we didn't want to overstep. Maybe it's because Pakistan was a very central factor in Afghanistan and Iraq. And maybe it's because China somehow was very cheap at the time. And we were able to make some deals because Japan was an ally. But that time has changed. I truly believe that there's going to be some form of, because if we can bridge that gap, Indian Ocean at the tip of India to America, we've now controlled Africa, we've controlled Europe because that's in between us too.
No, absolutely. So to close the discussion, probably just some fun rapid fire in terms
Sure.
of so your favorite food.
Pizza. Not close. American pizza.
And your favorite food in India, pizza as well,
Um,
or
Too many. Too many. No, no. Indian food is too many. But I will always eat chicken makhani and naan. Any form of naan, any form of curry with chicken, any form of, I mean, saag has become fast growing for me now, more so. But naan and some sort of curry I could eat till I'm
and
dead.
which
So different.
restaurant is your favorite one in Chicago?
In Chicago, oof, too tough. Too tough. There's too many and I eat too much. I'll take you to all of them if you come. There's many. Too many.
Which one in India?
Too many.
Yeah, you'll have to give.
I've
You'll
been
have to
really,
give a name.
yeah. So honestly, and I'll tell you, this sounds ridiculous, but we ate at the Taj
Yes.
in Delhi. That restaurant was fantastic. That's probably my favorite. But I do love some in Kerala. We went to a couple in Cochin that were fantastic. Dosa and Idli are rising my ranks as a Punjabi.
Yeah.
I'm saying that. But my God, some of the best food I've ever had. But probably the Taj's hotel in Delhi
Yeah.
was by far the best food.
You travel a lot. Which is your favorite vacation spot?
So recently we went to the Maldives, right off the coast of South India. I've never been treated better. I've never had a better time with my family. I've never made better memories than that one trip. It had all of the culture of India. We are also able to go to India, but it also had all the beauty of the Indian Ocean with sharks, beaches, just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The two most important decisions of your life.
Marrying my wife, if that was a decision, that was more of a begging. Number one. And to go to medical school originally.
Okay. What drives Vikram Sobti even now?
My family, period. I have to make my family proud, whether it's my parents, my kids, my wife. And the only way to do that is to keep on innovating, to keep on becoming better. And if they see me with pride, they can look up to me, which I know they do because I work hard. I can sleep easy at night. I don't want to ever disappoint them. I don't want to ever do anything that would cause shame. So that drive keeps me going.
Lovely. It was lovely to have you, Dr. Sobti, and we will.
What a pleasure. Amit, we're friends. I mean, Vikram, we've been friends for a long time now and we'll continue to be friends. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much.